Hello, BookTube. America had a federal holiday in the middle of the work week, and I worried that that would mean that nothing would happen, that normal life would not resume until next Monday. But that hasn't turned out to be true. My various mail carriers, FedEx, UPS, the on-foot mail carrier, the guy in the mail truck, they've all delivered. They were troopers. And some of that mail I opened off camera. But I have a delivery here that we can go through together. It's not many packages, and they're still toasty warm from being outside on the porch because it's ferociously hot here in Boston. But they'll get us through. They'll get us through to start the momentum up again. Let's see what we have here. Let's see if there's anything really ooh and ah worthy to resume our mail. What is this? Okay, all right. This is news to me. I did not request this, I don't think. Wow. Okay, fantastic. This is by John Gaudet, and it is called The Pharaoh's Treasure, The Origin of Paper and the Rise of Western Civilization. Isn't that an awesome cover? For our entire history, humans have always searched for new ways to share information. This innate compulsion led to the origin of writing on the rock walls of caves and engraving copper tablets. But it was the advent of paper, specifically papyrus paper, that the ability to record and transmit information exploded. For the first time in human history, there could be a continuously flowing exchange of ideas between people on the banks of the Nile and throughout the Mediterranean and beyond. In The Pharaoh's Treasure, John Gaudet explores this pivotal transition from papyrus paper to papyrus paper, which would become the most commonly used information medium in the world for more than 4,000 years. Oh boy. Okay. Alright, I'm on board. This comes out in early October. Fantastic. We're off to a fine start. Let's see if this next one can possibly compete with that. Oh my. Oh. Okay. Alright, this also comes out in October. This is right up Steve's alley. This is by Margaret Arnold, and it is the Magdalene in the Reformation. Saint, prostitute, evangelist, at the intersection of the sacred and the profane, of public ministry and private devotion, who exactly was Mary Magdalene? Described by the New Testament as the first to bear witness to Jesus' resurrection, Mary Magdalene is also associated with the penitent prostitute who washed Jesus' feet with her tears. Across these depictions, she has always represented a female spirituality that is as alarming as it is admirable. These paradoxes in her story have never been as stark as in the 16th century, the age of reform. In this book, Margaret Arnold offers a vivid recreation of Catholic and Protestant cultures that emerged in the 16th and 17th century, which saw the Magdalene as in a new way to relate to God and the Church. Oh, I am so on board. This is going to be a Reformation study. At least in a way, at least through one angle. Oh my, okay. Alright. And this gives me a perfect opportunity to plug Franco Zeffirelli's Jesus of Nazareth, his great filmed version of the Jesus story, in which Mary of Magdalene is played by Anne Bancroft, the equally great Anne Bancroft, who does just a fantastic job. Zeffirelli never puts a foot wrong anywhere in the whole course of the show, and one of the great decisions that he makes in the final act, when Mary returns to the hovel where the apostles are hiding, and recounts the story of meeting Jesus at the tomb, one of the great decisions that Zeffirelli makes is to have us not see it. We see it through her recounting. Zeffirelli knew that he had, a world-class actress at his disposal. So the version that we get is just Mary telling the story, which has two great effects. One, we believe her. Because of Anne Bancroft's job at doing it in that scene, we believe her. And two, it makes it possible for the disciples not to believe her, because it's still just a story. It's still just someone's fevered account of what happened to them. I love it. I love that moment in the gospel myself, where Jesus offers a very strange warning. Noli me tangere, touch me not, for I have not yet ascended to my Father in heaven. We don't know what that means. Does that mean he's a ghost? Or does that mean he's supercharged somehow? It definitely means that he's no longer completely human. He's perfectly willing to be touched during his earthly ministry. I love that moment. I don't quite know what it means, but even after a lifetime of thinking about it, but I love it. So that's great. The Magdalene and the Reformation. All right, not for everybody, but I'm going to love it. Now let's see. Let's move on here. Oh my. Oh, we're doing just fine. And the thing is, so far these are Steve books, but they're Steve books that Steve did not request. That's very strange. Ordinarily, if we have a Steve book run, it's stuff that I knew was coming. But these, no. Okay, this is by Justin Martin, and it is, this is going to be October as well, I'll bet? No, September. Okay, this is A Fierce Glory. Antietam, the desperate battle that saved Lincoln and doomed slavery. On September 17th, 1862, after nearly a year and a half of bloodshed, the country was on the brink of permanent division into two nations. President Abraham Lincoln needed a decisive victory to pave the way for emancipation and give the Union a sacred cause in the fight to keep the nation whole. He secured the victory he needed at Antietam. And in this book, the author brings us to the fields near Sharpsburg, Maryland, and places the bloodiest day in American history, 3,650 lives lost, in vivid new context. Okay, so this is a new study of the Battle of Antietam. Great, fantastic. And it's by Justin Martin, whose name rings a bell. What has he done? He's the author of 4 highly praised books, including Genius of Place. He wrote a book called Genius of Place about Frederick Law Olmsted. Okay, that's where I know his name. Genius of Place is an incredible biography. I wish I had a copy still. Wow, great. Okay. Oh, he also wrote that big biography of Alan Greenspan, which I never read. I just assumed that the parts that were interesting would not be interesting to me. Wow. Okay. So this is a new book about the military and political significance of the Battle of Antietam. So there are many books on that subject. This just enters into that. Civil War history. Great. Fantastic. All right. Let's forge on. This is very encouraging. Let's see what we have next here. Incredible. This is another great book. Okay. This is Winter War by Eric Rauchway. Hoover, Roosevelt, and the First Clash over the New Deal. Look at that. There they are standing in the rain, or in the snow, up there. The period between a president's election and his inauguration is usually a peaceful one. Those were the days. On very rare occasions has the president-elect encountered a conflict with the sitting president, and arguably none more so than Franklin Delano Roosevelt and Herbert Hoover in the months between Roosevelt's election in 1932 and inauguration in March of the following year. While Roosevelt aimed to begin addressing the Depression immediately, Hoover staunchly opposed his programs, contrary to what he famously recalls in his memoirs. In this new book, historian Eric Rauchway firmly debunks the prevailing myth that FDR tactfully refused to cooperate with Hoover in steering the country during the interregnum. Instead, the author illustrates how Roosevelt's victory at the polls was widely seen as a repudiation of the sitting president, and aware of the growing world crises, the Depression, Japan's invasion of Manchuria, Germany's election of Adolf Hitler, he used the time before taking office to demonstrate that he would devote his presidency to the preservation of American institutions. The author also reveals how Hoover blocked FDR's moves wherever he could, spoke bluntly about the supposed danger of the New Deal posed to democracy, and attempted to convince anyone who would listen that FDR was not up to the task of the presidency, either intellectually or physically. Oh my. Okay. All right. Well, I've been reading this the last 4 or 5 years. There's been a little boomlet of books about Hoover, and I've read and reviewed most of them. And this seems like it's going to be another example. Boy, fantastic. Okay, American political history. So we've got one more to go. Let's see if this can possibly. Oh, it's a novel, and it's a novel I know nothing about. It's a novel I did not request. Oh, well. And it's also not in the fall. It comes out right away. Okay, so this is Inappropriation by Lexi Friedman. And let's see what we've got here. Lexi Friedman's debut novel, it's a debut, okay, great, is a wildly irreverent send-up of the coming-of-age story, where a search for belonging becomes a riotous satire on identity politics. The novel melds the sensitivity of a classic Judy Blume novel, Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, the humor of teen cult comedies like Heathers or Mean Girls, and the literary bravado of Ulysses Nutting or Nell Zink. Never seen literary bravado from either one of them. Maybe I missed it. Brimming with provocative ideas and keen insights that will resonate with anyone who remembers the volatile years of adolescence, inappropriation is sure to become a classic. Okay. All right, so what is it? What is it, actually? Let's read a little more about this. It's a debut. That's wonderful. Taking the concept of identity beyond the limitations of our politicized and often censorious moment, Freeman has written a book that expands a complex conversation. She started writing the novel during the major bloom of identity politics when Obama was still in office, and soon recognized that if she was going to tackle this contentious landscape with all its nuances, she needed to write from the point of view of a naif, someone who might conflate PMS with PTSD, or an ellipsis with appropriating Aboriginal dot paintings. And so 15-year-old Ziggy Klein was born. Studying at a prestigious private Australia girls' school, Ziggy is confronted with an alienating social hierarchy that hurls her into the arms of her grade's most radical feminists. Plagued by fantasies of offensive sexual stereotypes and a psychotherapist mother who thinks bum pinching is fine if it comes from the heart chakra. I think I might like this author. Ziggy sets off on a journey of self-discovery that moves from the Sydney drag scene. Sydney has a drag scene? I'm getting the sense that you Australians are holding out on the rest of us. To the extremist underbelly of the internet, to the coastal bohemia of a long-dissolved matriarchal cult. As PC culture collides with her friend's morphing ideology and her parents' kinky sex life, Ziggy's understanding of gender, race, and class begin to warp. Ostracized at school, she seeks refuge in Donna Haraway's seminal feminist text, A Cyborg Manifesto, and discovers an indisputable alternate identity. Or so she thinks. A controversial Indian guru, a mean clique of blondes, all called Kate, and her own Holocaust-surviving grandmother, propels Ziggy through a series of misidentifications, culminating in a date rape revenge plot so confusing it just might work. Okay. All right, I'm on board. All right, this comes out on July 24th, so I can read it right away. I will read it right away. I'll read it tonight, and it sounds great. I'm curious to know now if one of the pillars of the plot, one of the premises of the plot is that the identity politics SJW, trigger warning keyword miasma that is currently choking colleges and universities in America. One of the pillars of this plot seems to be that it's just as bad in Australia. Is that true? Those of you who are in Australia, is that true? Do you have people being non-platformed or unpersoned? Do you have language police, pronoun police in your country? I confess I haven't even looked. I've been so busy concentrating on in Canada and America that I haven't paid any attention to whether or not it's happening in Australia. This author certainly seems. Who is this author? Lexi Freeman. You just had a book published. It would kill you to smile. She obviously never met me, Sainted Ma. She's a fiction editor and a recent Columbia University MFA grad. She was a Center for Fiction Writing Fellow in 2013 and has published in the Literary Review. I have not published in the Literary Review. I would like to. Before moving to New York, she was an actress with Australia's National Shakespeare Company, where she performed roles such as Celia from As You Like It, Lady Capulet from Romeo and Juliet, and Thaisa from Pericles, all at the Sydney Opera House. Good Lord. Good Lord. Okay, so you have to wonder, if she was part of the Australia's National Shakespeare Company, and has done the work. I mean, she's been in the big venues, walked on stage in the big venues. That takes a lot of time and a lot of concentration. And I always wonder when writers come from a drama background, whether or not I'm going to see it in their book. You'd like to think that you would. You'd like to think that if you spent, because if you've been in one performance of Romeo and Juliet, you have been in thousands of them that the audience hasn't seen. Every moment broken down, every scene, every piece of dramatic machinery ripped open by everybody, all of you together, sitting around talking to see how it works and then to make it work on your own terms in your own venue with your own people, playing to your own strengths and trying to hide your own weaknesses. That is so fundamental. And that sort of thing you do not learn anymore at major MFA programs. It's essential to storytelling, but you don't learn it. MFA programs have in large part become echo chambers of mutual affirmation. I shouldn't say become, because they've always been that to a certain extent. But now it's really become a kind of royal houses of Europe inbreeding. And you can really see it in the books that come out of most of the major MFA programs. You can really see that instead of being what old-style workshop programs used to be, where the books that come out of them had been battered to a fare thee well by people whose job it was to do that. Instead, you get a succession of hothouse flowers that have never seen an inclement wind. Their authors have paid through the nose to make sure that they are coddled right to the end of the program, and then when the checks stop, the coddling stops because you're out on the street. And the books tend to be embarrassing as a result of that. So, but studying Shakespeare in the wild, doing Shakespeare on the stage, is a totally different thing. There you will learn what works and what doesn't work in the most ruthless way possible. And I wonder if I'll see that in here. I'd be willing to bet that this is a debut novel that will not suffer from most of the problems that I usually encounter in debut novels. I bet this won't suffer from dramatically misfired scenes, and I bet it won't just wander off at the end. I bet it will have a carefully orchestrated ending that's emotionally satisfying, that's dramatically intact. We shall see. I will report back, because I think I'm going to read this tonight. Okay, fantastic. So we have a debut novel, Inappropriation. Then we have a bunch of history. Winter War, about President-elect Roosevelt, before he takes office. Then A Fierce Glory, a book about Antietam. I'm always up for... Antietam was a horror show, and I've read a lot of great books about it. I'm always up for another one. Then The Magdalene, in the Reformation. A Reformation study. It's catnip to me. And then The Pharaoh's Treasure, about the 4,000-year rule of the original ebook, which was papyrus, something that was relatively easy to make and acquire and transport and use. And so was the defining tool of communication and literacy for so long. This is just a fantastic. I want to get to all of them right away. But the only one I'm going to read right away is Inappropriation. I'll do that tonight. But anyway, I'm gonna wrap this up, because I get the impression that when I make videos with the AC unit on, the background noise is inhospitable. You can hear me. In the test videos that I've done, I think I've posted one video where I just left the thing on. You can hear me. There's a tinniness. There's a distracting background noise. So I've been making these videos without, which ordinarily is not a problem. But today, if you leave that unit off for 20 minutes, you're feeling it by the end of that time in a little room like this, with, that's covered wall to wall in insulation. So I'm going to wrap this up and turn the AC unit back on so that my little puppy and I don't swelter. But I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.